What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And in today's video, well, of course, it's Saturday. First and foremost, happy weekend to all of you out there. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and have something awesome planned. In today's video, of course, it is going to be the Saturday chat and chill. So we're going to go ahead and sit down, being that we are now entering the final few days for the Tekken 7 collaboration round 2. I wanted to sit down and actually just give my formal thoughts on this collaboration as a whole, and just kind of go over some things that I think Netmarble did really well, and some things that I think that they could improve on, and just make this more of a constructive criticism video more than anything, because while I am a fan of some of what happened here this time around, there are some things that are kind of disturbing trends for me, and I want to address a few of those. But before we go ahead and get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe. And let's just go ahead and get into the video. So first and foremost, I am going to be going over my opinions on this, but if you guys want to sound off yourselves, I do have a new community poll over on my community tab. You guys can go rate the collaboration as a whole from 1 through 5. Definitely go check that out. As of the making of this video, there's almost 800 votes on that in less than 24 hours because you guys always kill it on these polls, so thank you. But I'm sure that by Monday, when I'm planning on hopefully being able to do a video kind of covering the community's opinion, and we go through that we'll have significantly more, I'm sure. So that'll be good times, but right now I'm going to focus on my opinions. So let's just go ahead and take a look at a few things first. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the dice game connected to the Rush Dungeon event. So this time around, in case you guys have been living under a rock, the Rush Dungeon event is the only place besides your daily login that can give you these dice for the current dice game. Now, that is something that is a bit of a departure from what we've seen normally in the past. Generally speaking, I mean, we have seen these dice games tied to game modes before, but rarely have we seen ourselves kind of docked to a set amount each and every single day. Normally we're able to farm these, and this time around we were not. And that to me is a definite downside to two of the biggest events of this entire collaboration, right? Because if you really look at this, the rewards on here were incredible. If we take a look here, the final reward for 20 rounds of completion is going to be an SS generic memory, much less the repeat rewards for anything past that being 50 rubies, which are definitely going to be a very enticing reward. The problem is that you were only able to get about 1,000 dice per day on this, and depending on your RNG on your rolls, you may not be able to get to the final step of this, which really does suck. And in my opinion, there should have been some thought process here into how you could obtain more of these dice, only because honestly, this repeat reward right here almost is just unnecessary coding at that point. But honestly, I think this is a big downgrade from the Street Fighter V dice game that we had, that I think was like a pre-collaboration event that we had going into that collaboration. This is a definite downgrade from that, and I wasn't a big fan of this. The Rush Dungeon was fine. The card set was the first card set we've seen in a while that's gotten away from being a card set tied to dots. So that is something that did affect this card set as far as the hype around it, because it's not necessarily a damage set. It's more of a support set. It's more of a set that is there to help these Tekken characters to be able to go into certain things as a team and do a little bit better as a defensive unit, right? So it's a good set. It's got amazing art. The problem is that if anything in this game is not going to be offensive oriented, 9 times out of 10 it gets forgotten about. That isn't to say I think it's a bad set, because I don't think it's bad by any means. It's actually very experimental and interesting, never mind the garbage truck that's right outside my window. But generally speaking, when it comes to something like that, it's going to be used in sort of niche situations, and so therefore I do get the feeling that that's the reason why most people just haven't really cared. But seeing a shield on a card set for the first time is really, really cool, so that'll be something interesting to track going forward if that becomes a trend with some of these other tagged characters, much less like extreme tag characters, but we'll have to wait and see. Other things in here I wanted to go ahead and talk about. I want to talk about the event summon real quick, So I had talked about this the other day briefly, but I want to go into this real quick. So when it comes to the event summon, Nina this time around, our main character that we're going to be able to get for going through and getting 5 completions on these 5 multis, if you will, is going to be this Nina. This Nina is very good, but when it comes to this event, what I really want to talk about is going to be a couple of things in here and then some of the event missions themselves, right? So we have talked about this, but really the thing that kind of sticks out to me as a big downgrade from collaborations we've had in the past is going to be the fact that this time around we got All-Star Fighter Summon tokens, right? These All-Star Fighter Summon tokens for the battle cards and the fighters are not anything at this point in the game, unless you're brand new, that are all that interesting or valuable. And we've seen with the Guilty Gear collaboration in the past, we had tokens in here for the actual banners for the collaboration itself, which would have been really, really cool if they'd have done that again, especially considering the fact that these banners were as hype as they were because Tekken was something people had been clamoring for. And that to me would have really just sent this over the top, especially since this is almost like a sequel to the anniversary. It's almost part of the anniversary in a way. You know, so we had the anniversary banners right before this. People are already kind of low on rubies to go into something this big. They could have done us that favor, and that would have made me a lot happier. So that is something that stuck out to me. And then besides that, the problem that I have with this is really going to be some of the event missions. I don't like the fact that you have to play Dream Match. There's some that you can either just play Dream Match or win in Dream Match. I don't have a personal problem with it, but there's a lot of people out there that don't like playing anything PvP. So that is something that's kind of an inconvenience to them, right? And we've seen this in the past with things. We went through this before with Netmarble, where they had heard some backlash from people about not wanting to have to play PvP modes in order to get rewards. And that is something that they did change a while back with a lot of the old events. So now it's kind of interesting to see that in here. I don't personally, like I said, have a problem with it because Dream Match is something I do enjoy and don't have major connection issues to most of the time, but I get how some people do. And I guess it's one of those things where if they didn't have the win thing in there, then at least people could just jump into a game and get out and not have to worry about missing out on anything. But I don't know. I just don't like the idea of forcing players to play PvP because there's a lot of players out there that just don't like it, and they shouldn't have to play it in order to get something this important, right? The more important issue at hand with this whole thing, though, was the fact that for us veterans, there were certain missions on the event missions this time around that some of us could barely partake in or not partake in at all outside of the Tekken characters. And what I mean by that is things like having to limit break characters is something that is very tough for a lot of veterans, and I've talked to a lot of people out there that have been playing this game since day one, and they had this problem with this event mission because they basically missed out on those outside of just getting the characters for the collab. And that does suck. It cuts down on your gains here. And that shouldn't be something that's a thing. I think that that's something they could easily just figure out a way, you know, there's certain things that they could do to either replace it with something else or make it more user-friendly for veterans. And I think that that would have been something that would have gone a long way for veterans. And I think that anything with building characters going forward, now that this game is going into its 5th year, I mean, we just crested our 4th year, so it's one of those things where they need to start considering the fact that a lot of the players that play this game are hardcore players that played this game for a long time, and they need to adjust course accordingly while also taking into account all those new players so that they can get those easy rewards, right? So that's something I think that they can improve on. I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I think this could have been more rewarding. And honestly, some of these option cards in here, while some of them are very good, some of them are just kind of trash. So that's another thing. But honestly though, Nina, you're awesome. So don't worry about that. So that's pretty much how I feel about those things. Other things that came along with the collaboration, Boss Showdown is very controversial, I find. Either people love it or hate it, right? With Boss Showdown, for me, I'm kind of mixed on it. It's one of those things where you can clear it one time and you're done, basically, right? And to me, that just doesn't scream any sort of replayability. I think that what they really should have done is they should have had repeat rewards on here. I think there should have been some sort of repeat reward. Yes, people are going to be able to get it easy that can already clear it, obviously, but that makes it at least relevant throughout the entire event. Like if it gave some of the coins for that event summon or something like that, that would have been just fine. I'm not talking like a bunch, but just enough to make it worth doing once a day and wasting a few minutes, right? Anything that they could have done in this capacity would have been better than just making something that's pretty much one clear and you're done with it. And really with this mode, I hope that what we get in the future is not this per se, even though I would take more of these. I think what I would really like to see is just a world boss like any other gacha game, where we have this gigantic world boss, and by gigantic I mean its HP is just enormous, so that one player or 10 players can't just take it down in a day, and then everybody in global, everybody on the Korean side, whatever the case may be, can just donate their damage to it every day, right? And then we get a giant pot of rewards at the end. I think that that would be really cool. I think that it would get the community to do something a little bit different together, and I think that that would be something that this game's been lacking for a while. In its current iteration, I think that this particular boss showdown is fine. It just, to me, it needs something else. It needs something else to make it more relevant, right? Because this is going to be one of those things, again, where you're just going to clear it once and you're done with it. But I did like it in practice, though. I enjoyed it. I had no problem with it. It gives me something else to kind of gauge characters by. But at the same time, I do feel for people out there that have had problems with it, right? So other things that came along with this, there's one big glaring issue that does need to be talked about that I know some people have had a major issue with, and that's going to be these towers, right? So these towers, if you guys are not aware, you'll probably see here that if you take a look, basically your CP requirements are not that high, right? They're really not that high, not by today's standards. But when you consider that and you jump in here with a character that's over 200k CP and they're having trouble doing damage to these, to not just the bosses, the minions, then you do realize that there might have been a quality issue here, a quality control issue that was not addressed. It seems very sus, right? That you would be able to go in here with a 250k CP character and you'll notice that the damage on these characters, it just isn't going through. Like it's weird, like you're not doing that much damage to these guys. Very bizarre. So they're very tanky, and that is a problem for what? Beginners and intermediates, right? Because beginners and intermediates, while this number here by today's standards isn't super high, and I'm sure they'll have characters that can easily get over this, the problem is that once they get even up to those 180k, 200k, whatever, they're still going to have a lot of problems. And that's something that is very problematic for this, and I think that that's something that honestly was a quality control thing that they maybe didn't realize or didn't play test. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't want to throw stones like that and make accusations, but it would not surprise me given the history of this dev team being so small and being known for bugs, right? Which we're going to get to next. But really with this, you have these characters here. Obviously, this Nina here is not the greatest in the world, which is another little downside to me on this collaboration. This Nina here, you can easily pick up from the event summons and be able to get through most of this, but even then you're going to have trouble, right? You're going to have some trouble here, if not just be completely stonewalled by the end of it. And then beyond that, you could obviously be summoning on banners and things like that in order to get either of these guys, but even then you're going to notice a difference there when it comes to the damage output you should be getting versus what you're actually getting. I personally didn't have a problem getting through this, but I understand that I am from a bit more privileged position in the game, and I have a stacked account, right? So there's that. But honestly, I think that they obviously should have included the gold border Tekken round 1 characters in this pool too. I think it would have been really cool if they'd have split a couple in here and a couple in here, just to make it feel like they remember that collaboration, because people love that collaboration. They really did. People have been clamoring for it to come back. I think that another big thing they could have done was bring those characters back in some capacity. I think that would have been really cool. Even if they didn't buff them, if they would have had them in the game again in some way, shape, or form to pick them up, then people would have been just as happy. I think because a lot of collectors out there that got into this game after, they see that and they're like, man, I really want those guys. And I think it would have made sense to rerun them here. It would have been a lot of fun. But that's pretty much going to be that. Outside of that, another big thing is going to be bugs. There were a lot of bugs with this collaboration. It was very, very buggy, and they had to patch a lot of stuff. And that's just another quality control issue that makes me wonder just how small the team is. You know, it's just, it happens a lot with this game, but the quality control sometimes is really lacking. And I think that what they would do really well if they got even just an internal group of a couple of people to play test this stuff over a weekend, because honestly, sometimes that kind of stuff, it really is off-putting, and it kind of messes up the launches of some of this stuff. Like when Devil Jin launched, he was bugged. There was a bit of an issue there with his S3. People weren't very happy. I wasn't very happy with it, but I figured it would get patched. It's just kind of an inconvenience more than anything, and it just looks bad on the devs. So that to me is stuff that really needs to get addressed. But finally, one thing I want to talk about here at the end is the banners. Character-wise this time around, I really do agree with the sentiment that, you know, and everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to have a different favorite, right? You know, not everybody's going to be a fan of Devil Jin, not everybody's going to be a fan of Howrong, and vice versa on any of these characters. But I really do agree with the sentiment that if they would have cut Devil Jin out of this, then this collaboration would have been very, very lackluster as far as characters are concerned. And I'm not just saying that because the character choices were bad. I don't think the character choices are bad. I just think that we need to... Netmarble, I really wish would understand that if you're going to do duplicates, please just keep it to like one. Like, we don't need a bunch of duplicates all the time, much less on banners. Like, this Nina here is going to be a super forgettable character down the road. She's not going to really be anything relevant outside of her leadership skill, I get the feeling. This Howrong here is going to absolutely be awesome. But the problem is we could have easily swapped this Nina out for anybody else, right? And I think a lot of people are really upset that we didn't get Heihachi, we didn't get Kazuya. Yoshimitsu was the character I really wanted. They could have gone any number of ways, and I think that honestly going double Howrong and double Nina, it just really took the wind out of the sails of this collaboration as a whole, and I think that they should have probably gone with at least one other character. But outside of that, I think the banner Devil Jin, these banners, if you guys really are interested in my opinion on that, I think that these banners aren't necessarily the best banners we've ever had for a collaboration, but they are the biggest jump in power creep. You know, Devil Jin, you really honestly, guys, do not understand sometimes, I think, some of the people in the comments. This character is like quadruple the damage, quadruple good over the next best character in the game before his release, like besides Howrong, because he's in the conversation too, right? So these two characters are just absolutely stupid, even compared to Lady Choi, who just had come out, or EX Shermie. These characters, especially this guy, are just absolutely bonkers, and there's really no way around it. There's really not even a lot of good design here. It's just pure stupid damage, right? And that is something that's fine. I guess at this point, the power creep is just, we're gonna accept it, right? We just gotta accept it, because this guy right here, accept whatever they do. Because this guy right here, if you're a power creep kind of, you know, martyr, you hate power creep that much, if this guy didn't just piss you off to the point where you wanted to run out and like jump off a building, then I don't know what to tell you, because this guy right here is just stupid. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm enjoying it mainly because whenever you get to the point where this guy is, or even with Howrong, if you guys have him built, the amount of damage they can put up, the power creep kind of starts to become fun, because it's just like, damn, what used to be kind of a challenge to get this number, I'd pass that number a minute ago. Like, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. And so I think that the banners aren't necessarily the best we've ever had, but the power creep's the highest we've ever had. So therefore that can kind of shade that way for some people. But if you want to look at them as the best we've ever had because of that, go right ahead. That might be your prerogative. But I just think there's a little bit of an issue with some of the character choices here, to the point where it really did hold things back. And finally, the cards here. I think this time around, kind of the same way with the characters. This card set is one of the best card sets we've ever had in this game, period, point blank. Like, it is just absolutely ludicrous how good this thing is. It is a must have for any of these Tekken characters. Please make sure you get it if you're planning on ever investing in these characters going forward. Outside of that, the rest of the cards here were all really good. The options were really good. Everything in the cards was awesome. The most value in this collaboration is right freaking here. It is awesome how much stuff we've got in here. But really, outside of that, you guys, I know that's not everything in the collaboration, but that's kind of the main stuff that I wanted to talk about. One last thing before I go, because it is kind of a thing that sticks out, is going to be the packages, right? So the packages, when it comes to this collaboration and any collaboration we've had recently, have really done whales dirty. And I get why they're probably trying to comp cost on these collaborations, but I really do think that they could have done better here. I think that whales in general right now, and again, I've talked about this, so I'm not going to harp on it, but I have so many whales that I talk to that are so upset with this game right now because of some of these ideas and these decisions they've made when it comes to these. You know, because think about it, guys, I get, you know, most of you guys don't spend money on the game. Some of you might spend a little bit, whatever the case may be, but the whales are the ones that keep this game floating, right? And so if they're having problems and they're upset, that is a problem and it needs to be addressed. Netmarble needs to add more of a value proposition to these like they used to and stop fiddling with crap that they don't need to. They do tend to do that. They fiddle with something that was already in a spot where people kind of liked it and then they just mess it up. So stop fiddling with crap. It's gonna get infected. Stop that. Stop it. But anyway, you guys, that's just my opinion on the Tekken 7 collaboration as a whole. Honestly, for this collaboration, if I had to give it a rating like I asked you guys to in that community poll, which again, I will cover in a separate video later, I would say that I would give this overall a 3 out of 5. I think that this collaboration doesn't really deserve that much more than that. I could see it being a high 3 for some people, but really I think that the 3 is a good number. I think that this was an average collaboration with all of the potential in the world to be an absolutely exceptional collaboration, but there are so many things in here that stick out that in some of them I probably even missed, and I'm sure somebody's going to let me have it in the comments section for not mentioning it, but there's a lot here. So those are just some of the things that stick out to me on a daily basis. Honestly though, if there's other things that you guys have issues with, maybe even things that you don't have issues with, or even there are things I had issues with that you don't have issues with, there's a lot of issues going on in this video. Let me know in the comment section down below. But that's going to do it for me, you guys. I hope you all found this enjoyable. Like, share, and subscribe on your way out. And until the next one, you all enjoy your weekend. Peace.
Continue.